Okay, this is my third page of my sessions with the extraterrestrial named Melafon from the 1996 Varginha Brazil UFO crash. This was actually a second session. I thought there was maybe another page, but I'm not seeing it. So we were given the opportunity to connect with one being from the previous sessions that week. We're taking a class, so this was a 5-day intensive, 8-hour a day class. We learned and mapped, did remote viewing maps for 8 hours a day for 5 days straight. And I've done this so many times now. So it's an intense experience, and she said you can connect with one of the beings from your previous maps, whichever is your favorite. Now, of course, he was my favorite because I just loved talking to him. And I just mentioned in my last map that he says, or that I said there was a part of me there. I felt like there was a part of me in this map. Well, the thing is, I can't be sure that I'm not somehow connected to him. Because in previous remote viewing sessions, which are all blind, by the way, I don't know what I'm looking at, I have known when I'm looking at myself. We were once asked to map the purpose of our own lives. Of course, we don't know that. All I have is 8 random numbers, and I'm just drawing myself. And I said, this is me, and it was enlightenment, is basically what I was getting. It was everything that I'm already doing, even though I don't, I drew the Violet Flame Goddess, who came to me when I had my awakening in 2015, and it turns out she is God. I didn't know that when I even did this map a year ago. I didn't know she was the god. I thought she was a goddess that had something to do with the Violet Flame, but it turned out I was with God that day. So I mapped my own enlightenment, and I've done it a second time. We were given another task in another class, which turned out to be the best moment of your life, the happiest moment of your life yet to come. And I honestly mapped enlightenment again. And I knew it was me again. I said it in the map. I wrote, this is me, in the future, I said. So anyway, I decided to reconnect with this being. So I drew him as a unicorn, knowing that he's probably not literally a unicorn, but he did have a horn in real life. This being was said to have 3 horns. There was lots of witnesses, so they know that. And he had red eyes. Well, look at his eye. It's red. I don't know why I did that. I don't normally make unicorn eyes red, but that's what happened. And that's why you don't think about it when you're doing it. You just grab whatever color pen or pencil you want. That's how my teacher teaches it. She's like, put them all out there and just go for it. You don't know when you're going to pick something that's relevant. The color itself could be very relevant. So, up here at the top, you can see I started with my ideogram again after the numbers. And, right after I draw the ideogram, it looks like a point. And I put pinnacle, the top. It could also be his horns. It looks like a horn. It could also be a ship or something. When I draw something that looks pointy like that, it makes me think of like a rocket ship or something that's pointed towards the sky. So that's where I started. That's how the whole thing gets rolling, and then you just start writing and drawing as fast as you can without thinking. So then I wrote tall structure, pyramid, mountain, unicorn horn. I'm going with the ideogram shape right here. That's what I'm describing. So then I wrote that I feel that this being is at the top of their game. And it's true. This being was truly enlightened, and he has since told me that he and his friend volunteered for this scout mission, and they knew they were going to crash. They didn't crash by accident. He said they volunteered because they knew that it would have such giant ramifications for disclosure and open contact for us. And it did, because he's like, we're still talking about it 30 years later. What do you think? Like, he's still communicating with people like me. So it was a big deal. And he was at the top of his game, according to people that met him and said that he ruled the room with his gaze. He was in charge. And so then let's see, I'm not going to do that yet. What else did I write? That he was like a fantasy Like I drew the unicorn again. I'm sort of doing a body scan. That's what we call it when we draw the creature. And you can see those different energy layers around him. That was deliberate. Um, because there's a physical layer, there's an energetic layer. Um, there's different layers that you can tap into on anybody. So that's what we're learning to do. Let's see. I asked some questions. Are you an ascended master? He said yes. Do you work with me already? He said yes. Do I know you? He said not consciously. Do you have a name? And he said Melafon. And I thought maybe I spelled it wrong, but I thought maybe he's talking about Metatron, because Metatron is the archangel that's assigned to me because I was born on a Thursday. Everybody has an archangel assigned to their birthday of the week. So I'd never heard the word Melafon. Turns out that is a name, with a PH. I looked it up after I was done, and there it was, a Melafon spelled with a PH. Obviously, it wasn't this alien, but it was a person. So then I drew an eye and said fractal vision. I can see multiple dimensions and perspectives, move with grace and ease through life, admired by others. Let me go down the list. Strong, sparkly, iridescent, effervescent, glowing, ethereal, undefined, and untamed, buoyant, and it flies. Well, I mean, I don't think he flew with his body, but he was in a ship that did. And let's see, what else did I get? Okay, now the scan and merge. This is the phase I'm in right now. That's where I'm going to tap into the body that I drew. So this being is all love. That's what I'm getting from him. Every single time I do a session, I feel the same way with him. He's just so enthusiastic and so loving and he's just fun, right? So I got effortless movement between realities and dimensions. Brings hope and joy to others. The sunshine in many beings' lives. Healing energy. Uplifting beyond imagination. Magic. Feminine energy. Though I'm not sure that gender matters. Yeah, I did feel like a gentle, caring, nurturing feminine energy, but I wasn't assuming that this being was male or female. I call it he, because I don't know what else to call it, but I feel like if there was a choice, maybe it's masculine, but the energy was feminine. So then I'm tapping into their emotional body. They are very sensitive, connected to other beings, and empathetic, but nothing negatively affects them. They are outside the sphere of influence of others or of outside circumstances. They rise above the chaos and noise to a quiet, more enlightened place. That's spiritual mastery. If you can do that, as taught by many spiritual gurus over the years, that is the definition of enlightenment. I kept getting that this being was enlightened over and over in different ways in every single session that I did. And that's how, people really described him. He wasn't afraid after this crash. Because he told me later in our sessions when I channel him that he wasn't afraid because he planned it and he knew what was happening. And he knew that he had a role to play. And he said, don't feel sad for me. You know that we don't really die, because his physical body transitioned after this incident, but he's like, you're talking to me now because our consciousness, goes on. We don't stop being alive just because our body is no longer our human suit. Our physical suit has expired, but the real version of us is what was inside. And that is still alive, and it's still talking to you now. And he's still working on this project from the non-physical, just like me and my Chris work to connect the dimensions, between the dimensions. A lot of people who worked on these kind of projects while they were embodied on Earth just went to the other side and kept working on it, So let's see what I wrote inside him. He said, I'm rare because I figured it all out. I fully embody myself and my natural gifts. I show others how to do the same. I tune my frequency to the highest joy at any given time. life is to be lived and to have fun. When I come to visit people, they feel amazed by my magic, or by magic. I spark joy in others. And that's what it was like for me with him. And that's why I chose to do another session with him. And, when he told me I could connect with him and start channeling him every morning if I wanted to, that he'd be my guide, it makes sense. And on the other map, when I said, I feel like there's a part of me here, one time I asked him during one of our channeling sessions, are you kind of like a version of me? Because if you've ever heard Robert Monroe's reports, and Robert Monroe is kind of like the founder, not the founder, but the father of out of body experiences, because he had so many and he got it down to a science, literally invented the binaural beat and made the Monroe Institute so they could study out of body experiences. And he coined the phrase. He's the one that made up that term because he had done so many of them. And what he learned when he was doing these out of body travels is that some of the guides he was meeting that were his guides are actually other versions of himself that came to help him, which makes total sense when you think about it, because why not, right? So I asked Melafon if we were related that way, and he said yes, and it was hard for me to believe. I know it's possible, but when you hear something like that, you're like, I need more proof, though. You know what I mean? But then I just got a little bit more proof when I was reading this map again. I haven't looked at it since I did it. And when I'm reading it the second time, I'm like, it said, I feel like there's a part of me here. Like, I'm related to this being. And he confirmed it separately in a session later, and I didn't remember it. Like, so that's kind of cool. So anyway, that was just a really brief look into what my remote viewing sessions look like. They're kind of wild and fun. I've never had so much fun using a psychic skill. It's like being a kid, getting out all your markers and just going at it for like an hour and a half, So anyway, if you've watched all this, thank you so much. I appreciate that. I know it's an unusual thing to watch, but I thought it might give you a little more context about how I even met this being that I channel that I call Melafon. Thanks for watching.